Baltimore, huge fire drill loss. Brandon and I was talking on the phone like right before we got on about this game as we were watching it towards the end. This Ravens defense, actually a very similar games to what we saw last year for these two teams to roll 18 in the playoffs. But Baltimore, that defense, particularly Nate Wiggins, struggled a lot tonight.
Yeah, Nate Wiggins did. Marlon Humphrey not too much, but he still gave up quite a few plays where it's about 7-8 yards a pop. Uh, Jair Alexander was terrible. He got shredded on deep balls often. Part of that's also just because the pass rush never got home too. I mean, this is a defense just in general on paper that is extremely talented. We say that every year, but in big games, the team never shows up. The defense never shows up in big games. It feels like every game we watch, again, like if it's the Ravens playing Cincy like last year, where they won both games but barely, or it's like this with Buffalo, or the only time I can remember their defense showing up in a big game was their AFC Championship loss to Kansas City, and that's mostly because Lamar Jackson didn't really have that great of a game. But 9 times out of 10, when they're in big games, their defense gives up 30, 35, 40 points every single time. They don't stop anything. And it's, I just don't understand it. It's a team that prides, it's a franchise in general that, when they've won Super Bowls, it's been because of an elite defense. We always keep saying why they can't get back. And for the longest time, I kept thinking, maybe it is Lamar's, playoff performances. And it has been to a degree, but it's also been, the other missing part of it is their defense can't stop a wet paper bag from scoring.
So every time it's a different comparison.
It has to be, right?
I could see a plastic bag drifting through the wind, and that would score a touchdown on the Ravens secondary.
Okay, Katy Perry.
It's just so bad because when you look at the names, they are so talented. It's Alexander, it's Humphrey, it's Wiggins. On the line, it's Matabuke. There's names across that entire defense, and yet every year, when it matters most, when they have to have it, they can't do it. So, tonight was a few things besides that, but when you score 40 points, you should win every game. And it just didn't happen tonight. A lot of that really at the end was the defense. But we'll talk about the other reasons in a second, but the defense has to get talked about first because you my God, guys are literally Josh Allen's extending plays, yes. So your defense is kind of stressed out, to cover everybody for that long. But there was, especially those last couple drives, Josh Allen is finding guys wide, just standing there wide open, 30, 40 yards down the field.
Particularly on the sideline. They couldn't cover both sidelines. It was unbelievable.
I don't get it. It's like the Buffalo Bills receiving corps is nothing to write home about. It's a bunch of kind of misfits. Khalil Shakir is nice, but Josh Palmer's nothing special. They throw their running backs out of the backfield a little, quite a bit. Dalton Kincaid's a good tight end, not a great one. There's not really many receiving options, and not much of there's not many vertical threats on that team. Keon Coleman's nice, but I don't think he's anything great special. But the thing is, they always find ways to just get open, especially when you're playing Baltimore. Baltimore just seems to, no matter who they're playing, to just give up deep shots at will. And it's like we're starting to sit here and wonder why they don't show up come playoff time, why they haven't won anything. It's really kind of a two-headed monster. It's Lamar's playoff performances, but it's also, I should say a three-headed monster. It's Lamar's playoff performances, it's conservative play calling, especially later in games, which is the other problem that we're going to talk about a little bit, and it's the defense. It's really, that's what it comes down to at this point.
Yeah. Scoop, do you agree with that sentiment?
Somewhat. I am going to push back on a couple things. Because you mentioned the three-headed monster at the end. And first off, I do want to say, and I think that I know that the Lamar playoff narrative has been a dead horse. It's been beaten for the last 5 years. But I will say, the last 2 seasons he was in the playoffs, in those 4 games, He's got a 67% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, passer rating of 106, and of course what he's done on the ground. So I think that this narrative that he's the same quarterback in the playoffs that he was pre-COVID era, I think that narrative needs to be dispelled a little bit. I don't think that it's fair to hold him accountable for now. I mean, I know they're always going to be part of his record, but I don't think it's fair to hold him now as if he's the same quarterback as he was in 2019. You know, a lot of these veteran quarterbacks, you know, we don't hold them to the same, skepticism or cynicism from their second year, and I don't think it's particularly fair to hold Lamar to that. And another thing that I will say, I do agree with you on Jair Alexander and a lot of what you were saying. I do agree with you on the conservative play calling. I think that that's been an issue for a lot of these sort of veteran coaches from the Belichickian era. You know, it's not just him. I think it's the Mike Tomlins of the world, the Pete Carrolls of the world. I know that there's other guys whose names I'm forgetting from that period of time. Belichick, obviously. So I think that that's something that a lot of those defensive head coaches from the early 2000s, I think that's kind of a common thread for a lot of them. I think that now, I will say I know that Harbaugh was a little more of a special teams than defense in some areas, but no, it just, and the issue is, like you said, there's a lot of talent, but it's not cohesive.
Yep.
And when you think of the Baltimore Ravens, like there are just certain teams that you think of a team, you either think of a position group or a position or whatever. Like we've talked about with the Packers, it's usually QB. With the Steelers, it's usually head coach. And with the Ravens, it's usually defense. We go back to the early 2000s with Brian Billick and company. Obviously, those defenses with Ray Lewis and et cetera, et cetera. But it's just they're just not that now, and they are And I've been critical of teams like Buffalo for a while. They're so talented, but they can't win the big game. I think that right now, that's become Baltimore. I think that that's become, I think that they've become the team that it's like, okay, we talk about this with a lot of teams. We talk about this with Pittsburgh. We talk about this with Green Bay. We talk about this with Buffalo. Like all these teams that it's like, yeah, they're great on paper, but they can't win the big game. I think Baltimore is entering that conversation. And but the misnomer that I think is that people look at them as that and they think, they automatically think, it's tied to this narrative or tied to this issue with Lamar in big games or Lamar in the playoffs. That is the one area that I will push back on, because I don't think that matches up the way that it did 5 years ago.
I will say, Scoop, I think part of it, obviously, it is sometimes not even the numbers. I mean, the numbers are important, absolutely, but it is the fact that we pin this stuff on the quarterbacks. Like, we're still pinning it on Allen for not getting to the Super Bowl either. So it is the fact that, like, yeah, the numbers tell a different story, and absolutely that is worth telling, but it is the fact that at the end of the day, it is on the quarterback, regardless of what happens. And yeah, it's a misnomer in the sense that, like, yeah, a defense can have a bad playoff game and we'll still remember the quarterback. I do understand that as well.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm not saying that like he gets a pass that other guys don't, but I've heard people say there's a difference between this quarterback's not winning the big games, and this team's not winning the big games because of the quarterback. The narrative was the latter.
I think that's fair.
The narrative was the latter for so long, and I think that and I'm just saying that I think that is missing the mark a little bit based on the way things have trended recently. Obviously, the NFL is about the Super Bowl, and the teams are about the quarterback in this day and age. It's running game and defense are not going to propel you, with an average quarterback, despite what people want to say about certain teams. But in this day and age, you live and die with your quarterback, and we've seen it with teams like the Bengals that turned around seemingly overnight when they got Joe Burrow. So, but again, you can go to the playoffs 7 years in a row. If you lose the wild card game or the divisional game every year, who gives a crap? And so they definitely do have some things to evaluate there. But it was sort of the cause and effect that I had a bit of a different perception on, I think.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And Brandon, when we switch to the Bills, we finally have a Superman that we can actually talk about with this, because David Cornsweet is now our actual Superman. Thank God we actually have a proper Superman now. I love Henry Cavill. I have him on my wall back here. But still, David Cornsweet's our Superman.
That's my friend's celebrity crush.
Yeah, I get it. I get that. I understand that for a lot of women in this world. I get that. But Brandon, it's honestly Josh Allen being David Cornsweet's Superman. We can label it directly now because of what DC's done, but also just it's still an issue, right? We talk about it every year that James Cook needs to turn the ball more, and he got some carries tonight, and you can also transition this into your pass accuracy stuff that we were talking, or that you wanted to bring up today. But the David Cornsweet Supermanness is an issue.
It's just, my God, like it really is. I look at Josh Allen every year, and it's like, it's like this is why, like, him versus Lamar. Like, Lamar had a good playoffs last year, so it's like I think the narrative's starting to change. I think the year before the numbers looked good, but he still had he was below 62% completion percentage in the 2023 playoffs, so it still wasn't where it needed to be. It wasn't MVP Lamar. So last year, I think, was the first one where he really actually did do well. But I think, like, when I look at Josh Allen, I look at, like, his overall body of work, what the Bills seem to rely on a ton is just, I mean, even tonight, he had to throw the ball basically 50 times for them to win that game. Like, and that could have been, like, early on, that was part of the reason why they were going 3-and-out and they were falling behind in terms of falling behind Baltimore in this game. You can't throw the ball on 3 straight downs every single drive. Like, you just can't do that on almost every drive. There were so many drives where they're getting the ball right after either Baltimore scored or kicked a field goal or whatever, and they're not down by much. They're only down by 3 or by 7, hell, even by 10 at one point, which is not a lot in football. And you're coming out on 1st and 10, and you are still trying to throw the ball on, like, every time you get the ball back. You have James Cook. He is a 1,000-yard rusher. He never touches the ball enough. I can count maybe on one hand how many times in a season he gets 20 or more touches in a game. That's criminal. It's criminal. Like, this is, for some reason, he'll get stuffed, and this is what you were mentioning on the phone with me, Rob. He'll get stuffed 1 or 2 times on a drive, and then you don't see him touch the ball again on a run play for like 3 straight drives.
Yeah, they give up on him pretty quickly. It's so weird.
Like,
yeah,
in today's NFL, especially when you have teams like Baltimore, like, that have a Derrick Henry, or like Philly that has a Saquon Barkley, or a Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. Thank you. But when you have those guys, you have to do a little bit of both and lean on them, and then also rely on your quarterback to throw the ball when they need to. But you can't have a quarterback just in today's game. I feel like a quarterback you just cannot win games when your quarterback is constantly throwing 40-plus times a game. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it does. I hear you. It doesn't work. And I'm going to transition you into the numbers that you saw today, because I think that was very interesting. Scoop, do you have something to say before we get to those?
Yeah, well, just real quick, because I had gone back, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I've gone back and I've done some looking into that. And you go back to the Roethlisberger Steelers, and even the Dak Cowboys now. There's almost there's a very strong inverse correlation between throwing more than about 40 or so pass attempts and winning percentage. Typically, the higher your pass attempts are and the more imbalanced your rushing versus passing is, typically that's an indicator of more losing than winning.
Yeah,
and Brandon, that leads perfectly into what you're about to say here.
Yep, because I looked at it because I was actually curious. I was talking on Discord, and I looked at because today, the Patriots only lost by 7, right, to Vegas? So they were never behind by a ton of
20 to 13. They were never really behind by a lot.
They were never really behind in that game. So and same thing with the Saints-Cardinals game. The Saints only lost by 10. They were never really behind like that, like to the point where they had to throw so much. When you look at and now Josh Allen tonight he's like kind of the one outlier, but that's 1 out of 10. Out of the top 10 guys through week 1 so far that have thrown basically in the top 10 in pass attempts through week 1, how many of those guys in the top 10 you think won their games? Rob knows, but how many?
Guess?
How many guys in the top 10 do I think won their games?
Yeah,
I'll go with 2.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, 2. It's 2. Right on the money.
It has to update tonight, so it could be 3 because Josh Allen had a ton tonight. But okay, so yeah, it just updated now. So in the top 10, we have Allen 1. I mean, shouldn't have, but he did 1. Drake May lost. Spencer Rattler lost. Joe Flacco lost. Michael Penix lost. Bo Nix won, but it was ugly. Should have lost. Goff lost. Mahomes lost. Wilson lost, and Purdy won. So you have only so that knocked out the other guy that was top 10 before.
I have a question. Was Purdy at the bottom of that list?
Purdy was 10th. Yep.
Okay, so you could even argue. I mean, your case gets even stronger if you say in the top 9. That's only 1, right?
Yeah, in the top 9. Yeah, so basically in the top, or you can say top 8, just in the top quarter of the league out of 8 out of 32. Only 1 guy won, and in the top 10, only 2. And the thing is, when you get towards the bottom of this list, and I was telling Rob, when you get from basically about 12 on, like so from 12 to or even just 12 to 25, forget 32, from 12 to 25, like what? That's 13, 14 guys. I think 10 or 11 of them won. So I hate it when teams get so pass happy. And the thing is, a lot of times it's just your it's your running game. You're trusting your running game, but you gotta trust your running backs to not only sustain drives, but to eat clock. Because we've seen this a lot of times when teams get too pass happy and they keep going 3 and out in like 30 seconds. You're not going to win a lot of games.